Hello and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast, hosted by myself, Greg Oram, and fellow Forest fan from across the Atlantic, Richard Spray. We're in that place where the good time feeling songs are coming out, where we're never going to stop believing. Richard in Oklahoma, how are you doing, mate?
Oh, I mean, look, it's the Forest Star magic moment, right? We just, it's official. As if we didn't know it before. We know it, don't we, guys? Yeah. Great morning. And it's always better when you hear little Steve Perry in the morning, too. Little journey.
Awesome.
Thank you, buddy.
Following on from another win for Nottingham Forest. And by the way, that's 6 in a row for anyone counting. The national media have now woken up to the fact that we are a good side that sits third in the Premier League, although level on points with second-placed Arsenal. Are Forest title contenders? That's the question that the likes of Talksport are now asking on repeat. Desperate, it seems, to pooh-pooh the idea at every turn. It wasn't plain sailing away at Wolves last night, but another 3 goals and a 9th clean sheet of the season has put Forest on 40 points after 20 games. Now, some might say that in itself is title-winning form, but we're trying to, our feet firmly on the ground. And we're more than happy to be dismissed out of hand and fly under the radar. Joining us to look back on last night's action, we have Paul Morley with us, and from the Australian Forest Supporters Group, it's Scott Terry.
She said, do you come from a land down under? Women go and men wonder. Can't you hear the thunder? You better run.
G'day, Scott. How you doing, mate?
G'day, Greg. Great to be here. Happy New Year, everybody. As you say, mate, we keep winning. We are flying at the moment. It's amazing time to be a Forest fan. Just loving this journey that we're on, and so good. Feels brilliant.
I mean, I say good morning or good afternoon. It's 10 p.m. for you over there. Paul Morley, he's here with me in the UK. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm good. Good day, everyone, and particularly Scott. Good day. Happy New Year to everyone. And what a year it promises to be.
Well, look, if you're just joining us, don't forget to get involved in the comments. We would love to hear what you think of last night's game. We want to give shout-outs where possible. If you're tuning into this episode after we finish the live, maybe later on the YouTube playback or through Apple or Spotify, we thank you for joining us as well. Last night was a wonderful match. 3-0 to the Reds. Got underway by this guy. And then this guy pops up again for goal number 12 of the season. And then, of course, to top it off and long overdue, and we were also happy for the one and only Awoniyi. Got to try and find a way of getting my player songs in there somewhere, guys. You know that. And we are going quite IT today, because I asked some of our, before we get in with the panel, and we're going to get to you guys very, very soon. But I wanted to try and capture some of the instant reaction from last night. So ahead of the Wolves game, not knowing how it was going to turn out, I reached out to several of our contributors that come on the panel that I knew weren't going to be with us today and said, look, if you don't mind just giving us an instant reaction once the whistle's gone, it might be interesting just to kind of capture some of that. So I've got a selection here to play to you on video. And if you're listening, you can hear. First up, this is what Danscape thought after the match.
Not sure how to sum up all of the emotion after winning 6 Premier League games in a row in such comfortable fashion, and Taiwo scoring his first goal of the season, and just the whole reaction of the squad to him scoring. Just what a game, what a day, what a time to be a Forest fan. Strange first half, gave away some really good chances for them. Having talked in the preview show about them exceeding their XG, they went and missed a load of chances. Sells produced some good saves, and then that penalty shout just absolutely riled me up. But, typical Forest at the minute. We cruised through it, stayed calm, brought on the centre-backs when we needed to, shut the game out, and then Taiwo, that goal. The squad jumping up, everyone enjoying it. Nearly brought a tear to my eye, but, there's a long way to go in this season, so we just got to keep going until we can get into that European spot, and maybe a little bit more. I really think we can beat Liverpool in a week or so. Reds.
Looks like he just walked off the E17 video, doesn't he?
Landscape sporting one of the lovely Forest ponchos from the current Forest shop. We also had Ross from Texas tuning in.
Hey gang, it's Ross here in Texas. Clearly delighted by the fact that we've had another major win, especially away from home. Congrats on the team. Clearly the result was something that I think on paper, in my view, maybe was a little generous, if we're a bit honest with ourselves. I think if Wood had missed the chances Larson missed in the first half, we'd certainly be talking about it as a totally different game. So for all the good, of which there is plenty, and I'm obviously delighted, it could have obviously gone the other way a little bit. So we've got to earn that luck. We've not in the past. So may that roll forward for a long, long time. And technically second, minus a bit of goal difference. Brilliant. Come on, you Reds. Thanks.
There's a few more, but I'll give you one more now, and then maybe get some more a bit later on. This was the cheese trader, our great sponsor Stu Freestone, post match last night.
All right, talking Reds. It's Stu Freestone, the cheese trader, reporting for duty. Lovely little result there. 3-0 away from home at Molineux. 6 on the bounce. Loving the scores. Gibbs White, first goal. Beautiful cutback in from Alanga. Stunning. Stunning to see. Put away with ease. Woody for the next one. Classic Wood. Doing what Woody does. Like we've grown to know his position in the game, and he knows where he needs to be. It's fantastic to see. Final third goal from Taiwo. Nice to see Taiwo get on the score sheet off the subs bench. I would like to say that had a nice little bet on, obviously, be gamble aware, on Forest to win 2-0 with Gibbs White to score or assist and Chris Wood to score or assist. And then Taiwo comes on and ruins it for me at the end. However, he didn't ruin it because we got 3-0. So all is fair in love and Forest. Nice one.
I feel quite bad because I was encouraging Stu to stick with his 2-0 and don't cash out. And, like I said, don't bet, folks. It's a mugs game. But we got the third goal in the end, and I think every single Forest fan was chuffed to bits for Taiwo. We will talk about him and that goal later on. But Scott, let me come to you first. You were watching from Australia. So what time was it when the game was on for you? Must have been about 6 in the morning or 5 in the morning or something like that.
Yeah, pretty good, mate. 6 in the morning for me. Up at 5:45.
That's not too bad.
My way down the stairs. Yeah, not too bad at all. 6 a.m. isn't too bad for us. Yeah.
Yeah. So give us your general match thoughts on how you thought that one turned out, Scott.
Oh, I feel like I feel it feels like they're almost like routine wins sometimes. It feels, we've had so many games where we've beaten what we described as previous almost as bogey teams, like we beat Brentford, we've now beat Wolves, we've beaten a few teams now where we've kind of considered them in previous seasons to be a bogey team. So 3 fantastic goals. The first goal was real, was very much in our sort of style of play. We break up the play close to our own box. I loved Anderson's his turn, and then that pass straight to Gibbs White. Gibbs White just turns, spins, and then you can just see the four attacking players just running straight away at the defense. That was a brilliant goal. Gibbs White travelled with the ball. He travelled as far, and then Alanga kept his width. You had Callum on the left side as well, and then Woody was well, giving those options, keeping the three defenders, keeping them busy, keeping them in their lane. And then the pass was brilliant, and then just straight back in. And I'm really pleased that Woody actually scored. That Gibbs White scored, because the crowd, the Wolves crowd, were giving Gibbs White quite a bit of stick, and it wasn't particularly pleasant, some of it. So really pleased for Morgan. Cracking goal, great team goal. The second goal as well. Wow, another great game. Great to see Callum as well. Callum going to the byline, not necessarily cutting in, because that's kind of like his trademark now, and teams have become used to that. So for him to sort of actually go to the line, cross the ball back in. I loved Wood's run. If you watch the play, he sprints really hard. Defenders go with him. He then drops back last minute, makes himself available, and a beautiful finish. And then Taiwo at the end, that smile after he scored. Wow. It was great to see. Taiwo looked so happy, so pleased. So yeah, just really pleased with the performance. And I thought we played really well. We were efficient and effective going forward. They actually had a couple of chances first half, but I thought we were really good for the win. To score 3 goals against Wolves at Wolves, that's a pretty big achievement. So very happy with it. Yeah, just another real feel good factor for us as well.
It's 6 in a row, Richard, and we are walking into uncharted territory. Is an understatement. We haven't done 6 in a row in the top flight or in any flight, I don't think, since the 60s, as they were saying on the TV. But let's kind of rewind. We've all watched the match. We know what happened, and Scott's taken us through it really nicely. But let's think about the team lineup at the start of the game. And Richard, we talked about the possibilities in the pre-match show. I thought we might match them up with 3 at the back. It wasn't to be. We went to the back 4 again with Nicholas Dominguez staying in the midfield with Elliot Anderson, Hudson-Odoi coming back in, Murillo fit again. Were you pretty happy with the back 4 and how we lined up?
I was, and I kind of anticipated. I think when we did our preview show, we talked about that, and it seemed like that's just the general setup that he wants as a a rule for baseline for how Nuno's going to set things up and technically formationally. And so it was good to see that Dominguez kept his place, because he had played so well, and he had been such an integral part of beating Everton and kind of moving us in a different direction in terms of kind of like that sort of starting 11 that we're sort of getting accustomed to. When we go to the 4-2-3-1, it's starting to trend towards that being the setup for us in terms of who's on the pitch personnel wise. So nothing against Yates, because Yates is a great player and he's our captain. I mean, he's a heart and soul of the team, and he's that guy that everyone looks to because he is one of our own. But at the same time, in terms of the ability on the ball, a little bit more versatility in terms of where he can play on the pitch. It just feels like Dominguez is doing nothing to keep himself off the pitch, kind of similar to what Williams did when he came in and didn't allow himself to be dropped, because he was just playing so well and had such good chemistry with the left side of that pitch, including Anderson and Cho. So, yeah, I mean, I can't be disappointed in any way, shape, or form, especially retroactively based off the results. But clearly when we were coming into it, I really thought that was where Nuno was going to go, because it felt like he wanted to go at them. And even though we didn't maintain a lot of possession and things of that nature from a metric standpoint, we just took advantage of every opportunity that came before us in terms of shots on target, where our conversion rate was just excellent in this match too, which has just been how we operate week in and week out, it seems.
It feels like to me that all the talk beforehand about what we're going to pick in terms of players and formation is what you do on a podcast. Is what we as Forest fans, we've got to sit and talk about something. We've got to try and, have a conversation and talk about the team and talk about what the manager might do and what we might like to see happen. But it feels to me like we've entered into a period where nothing is going wrong. And no matter what he decides to do, it's all going to work out on the night. There have been some hiccups along the way. It's never going to be plain sailing. But when you think, Paul, about the 2 big hiccups being defeats away at Man City and away at Arsenal, they were 3-0 blots on our copybook, because we are not a team, I don't think, and we've shown it time and time again, that leaks goals, that was really worthy of a 3-0 defeat away at Man City. Maybe the Arsenal game, I don't think we turned up that day. And obviously that maybe just showed moments again of the development of the side. But as we've gone on this run, and as we've gone away to Old Trafford and won, and as we've gone away to Everton, where you were happy to have a point beforehand, because you rightly said, look, Everton is a tough place to go. You weren't wrong about that. And I said, well, I want the win, but kind of came around to your thinking in the end and thought, you know what, a point away at Everton would be bloody good. But we got the win. We won at Brentford where no one else had won. We've gone to Wolves, that have been another team that we've not got anything at Molineux for a while. It just feels like this team is kind of going through different levels constantly. So with all that in mind, and Liverpool come to City Ground, I don't want to kind of get too ahead of ourselves. Did you see last night as just a formality? I mean, I know that Wolves came at us a little bit. What were you thinking going into the game? And would you have been happy with a point ahead of that? Or did you think, you know what, 6 in a row, it has to happen?
Yeah, I was confident last night, particularly when I saw the team. I think in current sort of, in terms of who's available and what we've seen in recent weeks, that's our best starting 11. And I think I'll caveat that by saying matches are now 16-man games. It's not an 11-side game anymore. It's a 16-man game.
Yeah,
that's our best starting 11. And the way that he brought on Yates and and stuff, and obviously Morato to close the game down worked perfectly. So for me, as soon as I saw the team, I was even more confident. And obviously knowing that Wolves are obviously without Cunha, who makes a massive difference for them. Yeah, clearly that's something that went in our favour beyond our control, but was in our favour last night, and we took full advantage of it. And I've talked a lot on either here or on social media in recent weeks that we've had a bit of a rub of the green over the last 6 games in terms of particularly around recovery times. We've played teams that have had less recovery time than us, which again is through no fault of our own, and we've absolutely maximised it. And it comes back to your point about the team growing in stature and belief in that any little advantage that we seem to have in our favour, we're absolutely maximising that. And as long as we can keep doing that, again, it's going to involve staying healthy and stuff with injuries. But even so, when we talk about it being a 16-man game, even if we lose 1 or 2 from that starting 11, as we lost Murillo last week, we saw Everton, next man steps in, does the job. So, a lot of the thing you come back to about people talking in the media about, can this be sustained? And I've heard a lot of people saying, oh, well, once the season gets a bit deeper, is their squad strong enough? And so on. I think it is. I think we've got one of the strongest benches in the league. And then again, that's, I think that's a lot of the pundits not really paying enough attention to the depth in the squad and just seeing the results and thinking, okay, well, it's down to Gibbs-White, it's down to Milenkovic, and, that's it. I think we've got, and particularly I think we've got Sangare and Danilo to come back into the fold as well. So, right, we might lose 1 or 2, but as the rest of the season goes on, if we can sustain this top 3 or top 4 position, most of the other teams around us are going to be going deep into Europe. They're going to have more games. So if anything, that's going to suit us in terms of having legs and being able to rotate and share minutes and share the load. So for all those reasons, I'm pretty optimistic that we can keep this run going and keep ourselves in the picture.
Fantastic. Want to say hi to Gary's with us. How you doing, Gary? Nice to have you on board as usual. Jackie Howarth, good afternoon to you, Jackie. Pat Brett is Forest obsessed because he's already had a dose of Wolfie, a bit of Rads. He's been on Forest Focus and now he's joining the Talking Reds. Pat, we salute you for your efforts. Thank you for being with us. Brucey as well. He'll be giving us his after or post-match reaction a bit later on. Jay's with us. He said, afternoon, lads. Another good win. I'm sure the match officials this season think they're reffing an NBA game. Yeah, we're going to get to that incident very, very soon. Danscape with us in the chat. He wants to know over in Australia, Scott, how many giant spiders were watching that game with you? I hope that you didn't have anything too dangerous on your shoulder. Just sticking with you, Scott. Just on the first goal. Just want to kind of concentrate on the first goal because, I thought we started quite brightly. And like you said, the Wolves fans were abusing Morgan with that horrible chant about his girlfriend, which seems to be the only thing they think they can think of. It's not good. I'm not on the side that banter is banter. I think there's a line, and in true Morgan Gibbs White style, he shuts them up in the best way possible. You touched on the Anderson pass. As soon as that pass from Anderson was delivered, I just thought they're in trouble here, because he broke their line so precisely to give the ball to Morgan, who is super dangerous. How important do you think it was, knowing what happened in the next 30 minutes? How important was it that we got that first goal when we did?
Oh, look, I think it's always good to score first. I think for us as well, typically we've not always scored that early, but I think it's a provides the team with that sort of confidence boost. I think that also then the time of the second one obviously was just before half time, so a perfect time to score that one. But yeah, that first one, it was good to score early in as well. And I think as well, you could actually hear it on some of the highlights. I think there was on the some of the highlights which Steve Hodge and Colin Frey and literally I think as soon as Morgan scored, they're like, oh, he's going out. They were giving him grief. The Wolves fans were giving him grief by the cheering, and he's gone straight over to them and done the fingers in the ear. So he kind of gave it straight back to them. So good on him. And cracking goal. I loved you could see it. I think I mentioned it just a moment ago, but as soon as the ball broke to us, Anderson's first thought was to turn and get a pass away. And that ball that he sort of swiveled, he passed the ball to Morgan. Morgan travelled with the ball. And then everyone held their line, held their defenders. And then, it was, we've seen that before, right? We've seen very similar goals before where Morgan will travel. He's got runners off him. He picks the right runner, and Bosch, we're a goal to the good. So yeah, really important to get that first goal.
Well, the game against Spurs at the City Ground was a carbon copy, albeit he threaded Elanga in for that, and he slotted that one home. So if you're gonna allow Morgan Gibbs White all that space in the midfield to run with the ball, he is a progressive runner. He's not just a great passer with the outside of the right foot. That guy can run and he can pick out a pass, and it's great for Elanga to get back into the assist column again. He's his work rate, I thought last night, Richard, was excellent. But Richard, I'm coming to you now, because once we've scored, I thought, here we go, rubbing the hands together. That's it. But credit to Wolves, because credit where it's due. They have been playing better under their new manager. And it was like the Alamo. All of a sudden, there were more crosses than Easter coming in. It was what I thought we were going to concede. Strand Larsen had 2 chances. How important was it that Murillo blocked that on the line? And how important was it that Sell stood tall and stopped him scoring? We could have gone 2-1 down.
Yeah, because if you think about when we played Man City, you've made the point multiple times that had Chris Wood scored, what kind of trajectory does that match go on in terms of the shifting of momentum? And similarly here, if he gets that goal, I mean, and Murillo hasn't had to do that all season long, but that's what he kind of was known for last season. He was such a great good at positioning himself in the goal to keep things out, but that's what great footballers, heady footballers do, right? They just know where the situation and they kind of get in the right position. And, Sell similarly, even though maybe there's a couple of those from a post XG standpoint, you could say are probably not tremendously difficult saves. He's still got to, as you pointed out in our chat, he's still got to get in position. He's still got to have the reaction time to prevent those things. And thank goodness Murillo you could just see this progress this season. He's just putting himself in such great spaces and lanes and all else to try to prevent any type of forward movement. But I was with you. I was getting incredibly nervous because I thought, well, there's an intensity level here that they're coming in with. There's a great purpose to what they're doing, and their open play, their movement was so good throughout like a 20 to 25 minute stretch. There was a 5 to 7 minute stretch post goal that was really intense. Then it kind of died for a little bit, and then it came back again. And I felt like we looked a little bit shaken at the back. I don't think we were quite expecting them to be pressing as much as they were. We didn't expect with what kind of personnel they had on the pitch, because Paul touched on it. They were missing some key people, or they had some pretty key people. We didn't do
ourselves any favours with the sloppy pass from Anderson
Oh gosh,
And
absolutely. And there was a number of those actually.
And there was a
Yes.
couple of those, wasn't there? So we weren't doing ourselves any favors. So I was as edgy as you, thinking that, we weren't quite as assured because we've gone 1-0 up in the past and locked up and like just controlled the game. But I thought Wolves came at us, but we didn't do ourselves any favors. Do you agree?
No, I would agree with that. I think there were some errant passes. And Murillo had a couple. That one, because as good as the pass was, that it's almost like a no-look pass in basketball from Anderson to Morgan Gibbs-White. He tried that a couple of times post that, and it didn't come off very well. So I think we were being a little bit careless in our own half, and that just led to them. I think there was one shot in particular where I think it was Murillo that gave it up to an advancing player from Wolves. He kicked it out, and I think it was Rodrigo Gomez that had that basically almost like a volley straight at Sells, who had to react fairly quickly because there was a lot of pace on the ball, and that was a great save. But that was just emblematic of kind of where that was at that moment. I mean, beyond just the save off the line, but you're absolutely right. I just felt like we weren't quite locked in. We weren't as mentally focused as we typically see ourselves, where we just don't feel like, even when they're advancing and they're retaining a lot of possession and they're continuing to press and they're continuing to put us in positions where we might be concerned. Most of the time in the past, we generally just don't feel like. Take Everton as a perfect example of that. They had a lot of the ball. They did a lot of movement. They did a lot of passing the ball around from left to right, center, etc. But they just did nothing with it. In this case, they were actually making opportunities. They had big chances. They just didn't convert. And that was the key difference with us. We have finishers on our side. They don't, at least not on the pitch. Cunha is probably the guy that you would look to in that moment, who has shown that in the past. So thank goodness he wasn't there, because that could have been a very different outcome.
I think Dansgate was talking about it in his clip when he was saying, obviously in the pre-match, about how they are converting chances beyond belief. And last night, Paul, we kind of rode our luck, as we've said, but I think sometimes you make your own luck. We were having a bit of a debate about Matt Sells, and one or two were saying, well, look, the ball's hit him. And I think, as I was saying in the chat, his positioning is very good. He's become really solid and he's standing tall. So a word on Matt Sells again, because he has just continuously shown how much of a good keeper he is. I mean, his improvement, if you like, not just in terms of stats, but just in terms of how he carries himself. He looks like he's never going to be beaten. I think it was Gary that was saying in the comments, let me find it, that he looks like a human shield of some kind. I'll find the comment in a moment. But Matt Sells, keeping us in the game. I know, are you looking for a keeper in well, maybe not January, there it is. Are you looking for a keeper in January or the end of the season, Paul?
Not at the moment, no. I think I would say anybody who says that we were lucky to win last night because Sells made some big saves, I would say doesn't know the game of football. Because if you think back historically, every successful team has a great goalkeeper. If you think back to ourselves, Shilton, way back, I think probably the best one I can remember seeing growing up, Schmeichel, Man U, you've got Cech at Chelsea. The reason they're remembered as great keepers is because when their team needed them, they made great saves. So it's not like they have nothing to do. Then they're there when the team needs them and they make those saves. And that's essentially what we had last night. We had Sells doing his job, making the saves that he made, and did he get lucky? I'm not sure. Like you say, I think it's positioning. I mean, what I would turn it around and say, if you win a game 1-0 because your striker sticks away a chance, no one says, "Oh, well, you're lucky you won that because your striker scored." In the same way that you're not lucky that you won because your keeper saved it, because that's what he's there to do, right?
Yeah.
So no, I don't think it was lucky. I mean, yeah, look, we came under pressure and Sells stood firm, did his job, as did Murillo with the clearance off the line. That's part of football. That's why you buy these guys, that's why you pay them to do what they do, and they did their jobs. And obviously, as we know, we did our job at the other end of the pitch as well, and that's essentially what we've been doing all season, doing our job at both ends of the pitch, which is why we are where we are. And as long as we keep doing that, teams are going to find it difficult to beat us.
Paul, take us through the second goal then, because you're talking about the other end of the pitch and Callum doing, well, not necessarily what Callum's been doing, because actually I think Scott touched on it. He's normally looking to cut in. And my son Orlando said, why didn't he cut in and score? I said, because, it may be opposition have worked that out and try to show him the line more, but he was up against Doherty. And I thought, is he going to have enough to get past Doherty, who's not the quickest, but he can be quite physical. But Callum just skinned him. How good was that?
Yeah, it's brilliant, and again started with Sells, right? So let's not leave Sells out of that conversation as well, because he's been great with his feet. You know, people talk about we play long balls, but that wasn't a hopeful punt. That was a proper pass that he picked out Callum, and it was poor from Doherty. You could see that. So there'd been a bit of reshuffling, I think, in the Wolves back line, and Doherty was standing there appealing for offside, and there's another guy 2 yards behind him playing Callum on, which effectively gave him that sort of second or two to react quicker than Doherty and get his head in front. And once he got past him, like you said, he wasn't going to catch him. And much like Scott said earlier, it's great to see him go on the outside, trust himself. And again, I'd echo what Scott said with regards to Wood. He just that little check stride just to create himself that half a yard. And Callum knew exactly where he's going to be. Just a quick look up, flick with the outside of the boot, and Woody couldn't really miss, could he? So brilliant, incisive, one end to the other. Only 3 players involved from goalkeeper, winger, striker. Again, just I think Seb said it in the commentary, didn't he? 2 words: sucker and punch, and that's exactly what it was. It was literally caught him on the sucker punch. Perfect time to score. 2-0 at half time, and then I think I wouldn't necessarily say we're on easy street, but I think we're all sitting a lot more comfortably when the half-time whistle goes at 2-0.
It was 2-0 at half-time. It could have been 3, maybe should have been 3, because before we scored the second, Scott, there was a little bit of a shout for what some might say was the most obvious bloody Stonewall penalty ever known to man. How did you see it?
When I saw it live, I was watching it with my son, and we both looked at each other and thought, that's a stone cold penalty. His arm is away from his body. I think when you watch it many times on replay, and obviously the ref doesn't necessarily get that, but he is trying to bring his arm closer to his body. But if you look at the angle when he crosses it, you can almost see Chris Wood. And there was another one of the Forest players as well where the ball was travelling to. So watching it live, I thought, that's a penalty. And then when I watched it again, I thought, you can't. It was a penalty as well. If you compare that to, I think it was the Man U played Liverpool, I think. And it was a Delit. I mean, he had his hand above his head, so it was a little bit, but he was jumping. I think he was jumping to for a header. So this is where it can get pretty frustrating, right? Because for me, as I say, saw it live, I thought that was a penalty. So I was disappointed when it didn't go our way.
And you say that the referee doesn't have the benefit of a replay, but actually that isn't actually true anymore, is it? Because we have the VAR now. It feels to me like we've had VAR in place for, I think it's 6 seasons now, and it's been brought in to try and make sure that we get to the correct decision. And I know that they talk about clear and obvious errors and all the rest of it, but surely VAR, listen, we've had this conversation a million times, and this takes me back to Everton last season when we were all crying out for the VAR to get involved and no one was interested. But you've got a guy sat there who can see on multiple replays. And even if he's not sure, he might say to the referee, look, you've made an on-field call. You've said no penalty, but you've made that call based on a ball coming across in a flash. You've had a look at what's happened. But I think if you have another look, you might have a different view of your decision. You may choose to stick with your on-field decision that you've already got in place. You may choose to change it, but I want to give you the chance. I think there's enough doubt there to send you to the screen to ask you to look. And I want to get it clear again that referees must have the bollocks to stand by their own decisions. So if he's sent to the screen, he doesn't have to change it. If he had looked at it and still not changed it, I still would be annoyed, but I think I would accept it more because the referee who's refereeing the game said, you know what, it's my decision and that's that. But I want to go through the process where the VAR says, I know you've made a decision based on what you saw, but there's enough in it for you to have another look. And if you want to stand by your decision, that's fine. If you don't, that's up to you as well. But there's got to be more of this sending them over to the screen and not just saying, oh, I'm not going to get involved. I'm going to stick with what the referee says in the middle. Richard, is my rant a little bit out of place, or do you see where I'm coming from?
No, because let me give you an example. I understand I'm drifting into American football territory, which probably nobody wants to hear on this podcast because we're talking about Forest. But just give you an example. Detroit Lions were playing Minnesota Vikings on Sunday, and this was a pivotal match because Detroit Lions could get the number 1 seed, and they have a bye for their entire. They're at home for the entirety of the playoffs. That's a big deal, right? So there's a drive that's happening, and in that drive, it looked like the guy got the line to gain to get a first down. The referee on the field called it short to the line to gain, but within about 30 seconds, the replay, which by the way, in American football, that's all they do. They are trained. They operate that position alone. It's not a rotation scenario. They learn and they focus in on being replay officials. So they know as much about the rules as the guys on the field, but they also have that specific targeted position to do that alone. And that's how they're trained. That's what they do in every year. This guy stops and goes, okay, hold on a second. He's listening in his ear, and he comes right back and he tells the crowd, replay official has overruled. The first down is given. So he accepted the fact that his decision on the field was wrong, and he was given the opportunity to illustrate that to the crowd that the replay official overturned it. I guess my point is, as you stated, Greg, your rant's not wrong. The reality of it is, as we keep saying, it's the consistency of how they assess the moment. Because as Scott rightly pointed out, the Delict play was more bang, bang. He was going up to try to get in front of the path of that ball. And it just so happened he was going up and his arms were up. That felt more natural to me than what I just saw Aiton Nori do. I mean, because it felt like his arm was coming up to impede the path of the ball. But I could be wrong. But it's just a lack of ability to assess the moment in such a way that feels like there's any modest amount of consistency behind it. So because we're just seeing this week after week, this just sort of disparity between how people are evaluating, or they're just not going and looking at it at all, as you pointed out. Because as you said, he could have just said, you know what, I'm sticking with my decision. It's too close to call. I'm not overturning it. It's not clear and obvious.
Can I just chip in on that? Sorry.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, please do. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the VAR last night was a bloke called Alex Chilovitz, and I saw it and I was like, who the hell is that? I've never heard of him. And I've just literally, while you've been talking, looked him up on Soccer Base, where they have referee stats. He's never been involved in a Premier League game. This season, he's only ever reffed League One and League Two. So I don't think he's ever sat in the VAR room before. So in that sense, maybe cut him a bit of slack in saying, look, it's his first gig. You've got to have your first gig at some point, right? And maybe he'll learn from that. What I think they've and you referred to it earlier, Greg, about sending people to the screen or not. They seem to have backed themselves into such a position over the last couple of years that, I mean, it must, I don't know what the stats are, but it must be 95% plus the time that they go to the screen, they feel obliged to change their mind. But it shouldn't be that. I mean, it just basically go to the screen and with zero input from a verbal input. All that happens when a ref goes to the screen is the ref should be directing somebody to say, right, I want to see this angle, I want to see that angle. He should have no voice in his ear whatsoever telling him what somebody else is seeing. You make a decision based on what you're seeing alone, not without any noise from verbal, instructions or this is what I think. Just go and have a look. I'll keep quiet. Tell me which angles you want, and you make your mind up. That's how it should work. And it's not. We know we've seen on the stuff that Howard Webb does with Michael Owen, for what it's worth, which is a bit pony, that show. But we've seen from that it's all about this conversation constantly, and it's people leading. It's one leading the other, and it just doesn't work. So I mean, even Don Goodman was saying last night it should be a penalty. He cut him open, he bleeds Wolves through and through. So even he was saying it was a penalty. Yeah. And the only one thing I would say as well, just whilst we're talking about it, is I don't think it even got mentioned. Maybe it was me just instantly at the time, but I think when Taiwo bundles his way through at the end there, before he scores, and he knocks it, I think you've got into with Doherty and then knocked it past the keeper, and Doherty and Sarr between them bring Taiwo down. The ball dribbles out wide. Obviously, we're winning 2-0 by then. It's the 93rd minute. No one really cares. Had that been 0-0 at the time, I'd have been absolutely screaming for a penalty. No one's even really mentioned it, but I thought that was as much of a penalty as the first one. But anyway, get off my soapbox.
No, not at all. Time for a quick break, chaps.
This York shop is a cheese lover's paradise. The Cheese Trader is home to an array of fine British cheeses, not only selling it but offering an epic cheesy street food menu too. Guests can choose from a main dish and then select all the different types of cheese they'd like on top, alongside an array of other toppings. We tried their loaded fries and posh cheese toasties, both of which were absolutely smothered in gorgeous melted cheddar. We even chose a whole camembert to top our fries, which was so tasty, like a cheesy salt and pepper dish. The posh cheese on toast was some of the best toast we've ever had, with so many amazing flavours to it that perfectly paired with the cheese, tucked away just off Grape Lane. This is the perfect spot for a great lunch.
The cheese trader Stu Freestone, of course, you know what to do. 10% off when you quote Talking Reds. Okay, time for another match reaction from last night. Here's Callum Castell.
Hello. What a result. Apologies about the noise. I am in Dublin. Wow. I can't believe we've just killed the new manager bounce dead on the floor. We played really well. It was a difficult game. It was probably a more difficult game than a few recent games based on the chances they created, but they set up that way with the new manager. I just think Matt Sells is the best Premier League keeper right now. Kept us in that game completely. I know we won 3-0, but some of the saves he made were so important, just as important as anyone else on the pitch. I mean, the penalty decision was ridiculous. So it's that kind of thing. It's that kind of split moment. Sells has made 2-3 big saves there, and essentially kept us in the game so that we could carry on to win quite comfortably in the end. I'm just really buzzing for Taiwo as well. That's the key thing for me after that. And it sounds strange that we've just won 3-0 away. And one of the biggest things for me is Taiwo getting back on the score sheet, because it's absolutely massive for his confidence. And you're in dreamland if you're winning games comfortably, and then your striker that's been injured for a while and struggling to score comes on and does that. And that's one of the biggest things out of the game. I'm just buzzing. I don't even feel too surprised that we've won, which is mental. I'm just buzzing. You Reds.
So thanks, Callum, for your post-match reaction there. So talking about Taiwo Awoniyi now, Scott, how amazing is it really when we think about it that he's got his goal at last? Because, you know, he's had a tough time. We know about the injuries. We know that he's had to play second fiddle to Chris Wood. And there on the screen, we're showing, you know, embracing with Nuno and with Morgan. I think you touched on it earlier. All the players going to him and wanting to be around him when he scored that goal. How important was that goal for Taiwo Awoniyi, Scott?
I think for his confidence, it is huge. He's been getting sort of limited minutes. Has been coming on toward at the end of a number of games that we've seen. But because Wood is in such good form, you know, he's been obviously starting almost every game, if not all the games. He gets the lion's share of those minutes. So for Taiwo, and of course the issue there is because he was obviously coming back for an injury, he's not getting extended minutes at the end of the game. Therefore, he really needs the fitness. He needs to be playing in these games regularly. So for him to do that, you know, striker and their confidence, you know, when they're slotting goals and scoring goals, it gives them such a boost. And it was his reaction when he scored, and he kind of is, you know, you could just see he was so happy. All the team mobbed him, and I think there's a really good shot. I think you've got it on the screen there. You know, you're seeing sort of Nuno's reaction. You know, he's gone and scored, and then and Morgan as well. You know, giving him a hug after the game. I mean, that, you know, I think that just, there's such a good feel factor. You can see that the squad, they like being around each other. I think you know, with what's happening, you know, you see Nuno in the aftermatch interview, all smiles, you know, having a joke with the interviewer. You're seeing the players; they're all getting on so well. I just feel like there's such a good buzz around the team at the moment, and I think it's only going to be great for us. It's going to be positive for us, and I believe we're still going to keep going and doing very well. I don't like to say too much about how well we're going to do, but if teamwork and team spirit was a barometer of how well we're going to do, we are going to do very well. So yeah, it was brilliant to see him score. His expression on his face, it was awesome.
It was. Mark Warwell, thank you again for another £2 donation today. Way, he went to the game last night. Europe, here we come. Thank you for your support as ever, Mark. Stu, the cheese trader. Hey lads, hope you're all having a great day. He's in the comments as well. Time is pushing us along, so I'm going to kind of whiz through a little bit and say that, look, the second half came. I felt that we were going to gain more control of that second half after going in at the break 2-0. And that's what came to pass. We looked more like our assured, structured selves. I don't think we gave Wolves too much of a look in. There was another good save from Strand Larsen for Sells. Took a slight deflection, and he dealt with it. And he's adding some lovely fantasy football points for me. I'm slowly but surely edging back up there after a really bad start. And then we had the Tyrell goal at the end. So it was a lovely moment as well for James Ward-Prowse coming off the bench, and this talk that he might return to West Ham. And it looks like Lopetegui's been sacked. It looks like they brought in Graham Potter. So he might choose to bring Ward-Prowse back. That wouldn't surprise me if there's such a clause in the deal. Let's keep an eye on that. But listen, guys, we've won 6 in a row, okay? We go into the weekend playing Luton in the Cup. They lost last night. I mean, let's just think about that for a second. We're going head-to-head with Luton for a place in the Premier League last year, trying to stay up. They've gone down a sliding doors moment. Look at where we are now compared to them. I feel really bad for them as well. I mean, I just hope that they're okay. Enough of that. Paul, I want to come to you because Dan's not with us today, but you put together a few little bits, didn't you? I'm always going to play the music, man. Come on.
That song doesn't lend itself to geeky, nerdy stats, kind of.
It doesn't. But if there's a chance for me to reference the red thong on Talking Reds, then I'm going to do it.
Yeah, well, good man.
There we go. What have you got for us?
Yeah, so I guess obviously all the talk is, can Forest qualify for Europe? And I think as each game goes by, we're getting more and more confident about that. And are we a top 3 team, a top 4 team, a top 5 team, a top 6 team this season? And what you see here is essentially the league table since Nuno joined. And I know for those that watched the sort of stats episode that we did, and one that covered sort of Nuno's impact, we had a similar version of this. This is updated, including last night's result. So, the fact is, since Nuno arrived, we have been a top 6 team. We are the 6th best team in the Premier League since Nuno's first game, and that includes all of the, all of the crap we had to put up with in the second half of last season. He has literally turned us into a top 6 team since the day he arrived. So that, if anything, should give us confidence that on the way that we're playing at the moment, we just, we should definitely finish in the top 6 this season, which means definitely European football of some way, shape, or form, as long as we carry on, on that vein, which is 1.5 points per game. And I think, if that project forward 18 games, 27 points, that puts us on 67, which is comfortably enough for European football. So, are we a top 6 team under Nuno this season? We're a top 6 team under Nuno. Full stop is effectively what that shows. And then just to break it down specifically to this season, in terms of just how staggering the improvement is, that lists each team. And there's only 17 on there because I haven't done the teams that got promoted or relegated. But of the 17 constant teams from last season to this season, you look at the points per game ratio. We've gone from 0.95 last season. This is not including deductions, so 36 points on the pitch, to 2 points per game, which is an uplift of 111%. So, just a huge increase in our points per game ratio output. The next best improved team is Bournemouth, and their uplift is 25%. Now, there's obviously a little bit of a caveat in here, in that obviously the more look at Liverpool, for example. They were already at 2.16 last season, so there's only so much more they can improve. But still, it categorically says that beyond doubt, and I know we can all see it anyway, but Forest are by far and above the most improved team in the league this season, without doubt, and that just proves it. And then the final thing really is just again on Nuno, and he's now overtaken Frank Clark in terms of points per game for Premier League games for Forest. So we had 294 games in the Premier League since its inception in '92. Nuno's been in charge for 41 of those, and his points per game is 1.51. Clark is 1.49, albeit over obviously a larger sample size. Hopefully we can sit here in 12 months' time and beyond, and Nuno's got just as many games as Clark, and we can have an even closer sort of comparison of performance. But yeah, just worth mentioning that Nuno's now our most successful Premier League manager in terms of points per game since the Premier League started.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed for that. Time is against us. Raf had this to say after the match last night.
Oh my gosh, that is absolutely amazing, and it's so perfect with Taiwo scoring right at the end. I'm so happy for him, and it looks like the whole squad was so elated for him. He's such a good lad, and do you know what? Super nervous after that first half, and like the defence is being super uncharacteristically poor and weird. But the front four doing their job, unbelievable. All four of them with a goal involvement in the first two goals. It's absolutely brilliant. They're stepping up. That's how we're going to keep this run going. 6 in a row. Unbelievable, unbelievable. What I like is Nuno will probably get the defence and go, come on guys, let's kick on. But right now, cloud 9, when is this going to stop? Hopefully never. Europe, here we come. And that Liverpool game, win that with 3 points behind them. Game on.
Well, bottling up that kind of post-matchness was what I was hoping for. So thanks for that, Raf. Nick was pointing out in the comments that there's no termination clause for JWP. And Jackie's the one that noticed that she's feeling concerned. I have still got my Christmas tree up. Yes, indeed. It's behind me. It's a very small thing. We kind of did a smaller Christmas this year, but we traditionally at least keep our tree up till the 6th. My wife's Polish, so the 6th is the day of Three Kings in Poland. The tree stays up to the 6th, and that was yesterday. And we sometimes leave it up a bit longer because we can't be bothered to take it down. And our son's birthday is on the 25th, and we sometimes have it up for that as well. So, I still need to get 2 stars to go above that tree. So I kind of feel like as long as we're winning, the tree's staying. I feel like it's a bit of a good luck charm. All the way through our run, we've had the tree up. So tree stays until we lose. I think that's a fair thing to say. I've just actually decided that on the spot. I hope the missus is quite happy with that. We'll see what happens later. Okay, yes, indeed. The Three Kings are definitely Nuno, Milenkovic and Wood. Nice one, Danscape. I saw that one coming in then. Scott, time is moving along very, very sharply. We over here have Troy Deeney, who does a team of the week for the BBC. It used to be Garth Crooks. If you'll remember Garth Crooks, of course. And I'm sure you know who Troy Deeney is, even though you're down under these days. He's a bit of a divisive character sometimes. And in spite of all the wins and all the performances, and even when we beat Liverpool away, he couldn't put a Forest player into the team of the week. This time round, he's got Sells in goal, Milenkovic and Murillo in there, and Gibbs White. Do you think that's justified? Could you make a case for any more players in the team of the week?
Oh, absolutely, it's justified. I also saw this, and I posted it on the Forest supporters group page. Yeah, and it's funny. A few people commented saying, "Oh no, we've got 4 players in the team of the week. It's going to draw attention to Forest." Because to be honest, we still sort of feel a little bit as if we're under the radar a little bit. Greg, I think you mentioned at the start. I think other pundits, are starting to notice us a bit more now, and we are getting 4 players in team of the week. I think obviously defensively we were very good last night. Gibbs White had a blinder. Woody scored again. So I'm sure we could make a case for more players being in the team. I think Aina had another good game as well. He just seems to he is the under the radar type of guy. He's so consistent. Really, really good. But I think I'll stick. Let's stick with 4 because I still want us to stay under the radar. Let's focus. Let the pundits talk around Liverpool and Chelsea and those teams. Let us just keep on doing our thing. Keep on having the wins. Let's just keep on going and keep those wins going.
Richard, how under the radar are we now, though? Because Danscape has given us the updated European Dream Tracker, featured on another podcast as well earlier, but here it is on ours. The yellow line represents a top 4 finish. The green represents going for the title, I think, pretty much. And there's Nuno taking a nice downward slope. I mean, I was listening to Talksport this morning, and Jeff Stelling, Ali McCoy were talking about Forest non-stop. Jim White, Simon Jordan started about Forest because we are the story. The story's there. It feels like no one's still quite ready to include us in a title challenge or say that we're in the title challenge. You know, we're level on points on 40 with Arsenal. Chelsea are 4 points behind us, but they're in a title race, apparently. Man City are wherever they are now, 6th and 6 points behind us. They're still going to come good, apparently, and they're still going to possibly be in a title challenge. But Forest aren't in a title challenge. Do you think that's fair?
I guess, from our perspective, no, because I think we all believe, or at least we're starting to inch towards the belief that we are in the title challenge, because look where we are on the table. Look who we're tied with in points. We're just a few goals behind Arsenal at this point. Our goal difference just continues to ratchet up. Our clean sheets continue to ratchet up. So from my perspective, I think we are, but it's a tall order. I mean, we know how well Liverpool's played this season, and historically, you know, even last season, I think Arsenal, they had a bit of a dip, and then they sort of elevated their play towards the end of the season. Chelsea tends to ebb and flow, as we know. But yeah, I just don't think that they're quite ready to crown us as part of that race yet. They may touch on it briefly when in relation to Leicester in the 2015-2016 season, right? That's about as far as it goes, and then they move on to another topic relatively quick. So that's fine. I think Paul's been saying this all along. We do better when we're not in the spotlight, and we're going to fly under the radar, as Scott just alluded to, and you've alluded to, Greg. So long may it continue that way, because we just keep winning matches. We keep playing with the utmost consistency. Our best player on the pitch, well, I'll say from my perspective, he's the best player on the pitch. Morgan Gibbs-White continues to put in performances. It's all just going to continue to move forward. As Paul said, it's a sustainable model because of the way that we play. So, yeah, I think we're definitely in the title race, but I think we're going to continue to be that way probably until the last week of the season when we play Chelsea. That's probably how it's going to function. They're just not going to accept it because, you know, we were the radicals, the rebels last season in terms of how we managed ourselves, especially as it relates to Tweetgate and things like that. So they don't want to put us in that category yet, that tier.
I want to just give you a bit of flavour of what Bruce had to say from last night or after the game. His one's a little bit longer, so I might fade this out, Bruce. Apologies if I do, but this was Bruce post-match.
Howdy, y'all. This is Bruce from Texas giving you my post-game reaction to the Wolves-Forest game. That was a Champions League side dispatching a lower league side comfortably. That's what that looked like. Matt Sells, first of all, was absolutely brilliant today. He earned and deserved that clean sheet. We give a lot of credit to the M&M duo, and rightfully so. They've been absolutely brilliant this year. Matt Sells stepped up. He made a couple key saves to keep us in the game and comfortable for an entire 97 minutes. It was beautiful. Matt Sells being vocal, being a leader that you love to see in the goal. Secondly, Callum Hudson-Odoi. He was involved, he was an impact, and he didn't even score a goal. And that's what you love to see from your wingers. When they're not finishing or when they're not scoring goals, be there, be involved, put the crosses in, make the passes, and that's what he did to a T. If it wasn't for Matt Sells, I'd be shouting for Callum Hudson-Odoi for man of the match. And Morgan.
Thanks, Bruce. On the man of the match, guys, what do you think? Richard, man of the match for you?
Oh, I can't say. It's a fine line with Joe, but I would say that it's got to be Matt Sells. I just think there's too many critical moments in there that things could have gone a very different direction. So yeah, I'm going to say him.
Scott, what about you?
I think Morgan actually won it on the ground, but yeah, there were a number of other players that played real good. Callum played really well. I agree with that. Yeah, I think Sells had a pretty good shout. I think that was the game when he really stood up, and I think that has now pushed him. That performance has now pushed him that little bit higher in terms of the keeper rankings in the Premier League.
And Paul Morley, what do you reckon?
Yeah, Sells for me, just for the key moments and the times that he made the saves. Yeah, Matt Sells.
I for me personally, I would choose Morgan Gibbs-White. Sells for all the reasons you guys have said, but I just feel like in terms of winning the match, coming back to Wolves, facing the abuse he did, the way that he impacted that opening goal, obviously with the run and scoring it, and just his general play. For me, he's man of the match. But it's so amazing to have so many different candidates week in, week out. Another player who continues to just delight every single one of us is Murillo. And there's talk that he is now in talks with Nottingham Forest. Florian Plettenberg on X revealing stuff that we heard yesterday that Forest are now pushing to extend the contract of Murillo beyond 2028. The talks have started. They're proceeding well. The 22-year-old central defender is having a top season. He is a key player for the club. And quite importantly, no release clause planned, apparently. Whether that turns into being reality or not, who knows? A release clause not in the deal, in the contract, means that it gives Forest perhaps that extra layer of security. If there's a release clause in there for 60 million or 70 million and someone comes in and wants to pay it, then you kind of have your hands tied and you have to do business. If the player wants out with no release clause, then that puts all the power really with the club, especially if he's tied in for 4 or 5 years. So we don't have a lot of time or any time to get in some more January targets chat. But before we close, I wanted to just talk about a very special person. And it was 50 years yesterday that the amazing Brian Clough, pictured behind Paul Morley with a very young Paul Morley in his arms on a plane somewhere, came to the City Ground. And I mean, he was a character that we all know and we all look back on with fond memories. But Brian Clough always knew the importance of the league. For him, the league was everything. And I want to play this clip to you from an old interview when he sat down with John Motson.
You're in 4 competitions again, defending the European Cup, going for the League Championship, and of course the FA Cup and the Football League Cup. What are the priorities?
The Football League always has been and always will be. I would gladly go out of the European Cup, the Football League Cup, and the FA Cup, which we're not even in yet. I would gladly go out of them tomorrow if you could guarantee me winning the Football League.
Why do you feel so strongly about that?
Because that is the one that you have to have every single aspect of football management about you to win it. You've got to have endurance, you've got to have talent, you've got to be a little bit daft, you've got to have strength, psychology, you name it, and of course you've got to have very good players, but it's a real endurance battle over 9 or 10 months.
I mean, it hasn't changed, has it? It hasn't changed in all the time since Brian Clough's days. It hasn't changed. You have to be a bit daft. You have to have endurance. You have to have all the tools and ingredients, really. So thinking about the current team, Richard, can we really, do you think, make it happen? Have we got a bit of daftness in there? Have we got a bit of team spirit that you need? Are the dice being rolled in our favour?
There's a great movie that I love called Invincible. Sports movies. I love sports movies. And in that, the head coach says, we've got to find the soul of this team again. And then he harkens back to these players that showed soul. And I would say that's what we have. As a team, we have soul. Scott called it team spirit. It's just an unparalleled unity in terms of how we work for each other. People accept the fact, like, look at Taiwo as a perfect example. He doesn't get the same minutes he has in the past. He doesn't get the same plaudits because he's not on the pitch as much as he was. And there's a number of reasons for that, as we know, but look at the reaction as we discussed earlier to what he did to succeed, because he's putting in the time off the pitch and playing his role to perfection, just like everybody else is. And I think it starts with Marinakis' ambition and desire to see this team become what it was at one time. And what Clough described, every little adjective or attribute that you touched on and he touched on, is exactly what we have. It's a different managerial style from Nuno. It's a different way of getting the team to play together, but it's the same ingredients. And so It's why we'll never have a soulless bowl in our ground, even if we expand to 50,000, because it's what the city is. It's what our team is. It's just incredible to see it all building. It started with Cooper, and Paul touched on that perfectly in terms of how we progressed from the stats side of things. But I think the undertone of that is everything that we just heard from Brian Clough.
Brian Clough was outspoken. He didn't mind what he said, Paul. And there was one famous interview when he was talking about Maxwell and Murdoch and what he'd like to do to them.
If I wanted to improve the standard of life in this country overnight and somebody gave me a magic wand at Christmas, I would have them removed from this planet.
There's never going to be anyone like Brian Clough again, is there?
There isn't, no. Yeah, obviously I was very fortunate to meet him a couple of times. Once when I was
You never mentioned that before.
Once when I was mascot and once on the aeroplane. No, he was a one-off, wasn't he? And I think he, 50 years ago yesterday, walked into our football club and over time transformed the fortunes of the club, the city, and all of our lives. I mean, myself included, most of us weren't even born yet, and he transformed our lives without us even being born yet. And his legacy will live on in the heart of every Forest fan for forever and for generations to come. And just what makes it such a special football club. And I think that's why, you'll start to see over the weeks and months ahead, if we keep ourselves in this sort of top four, that there'll be a groundswell of support for Forest, people wanting us to win the league, even though it's probably not going to happen. Probably apart from obviously Liverpool fans, Derby fans, and Leicester fans. But it will be that there'll be that tide, and a lot of that will come back to the fact that people hold Forest in high affection because of what Brian Clough did. And just to again, from last sort of input from me from a stats perspective, if we think about it's 50 years ago today since Clough took over, and we're third in the league. And if you go back for each of the 50 seasons that the team has been sat at third place on the 6th of January, only 6 of them have gone on to win the title. So that probably suggests that that's a bridge too far. But 46 of them have gone on to finish in at least the top 5. So if we're thinking about Champions League and if that goes down to 5th place, I think even 42 have finished in the top 4. So, the omens look really good for that eventuality. The title probably beyond us, but yeah, what a ride he gave us, and it's like I feel like I'm 9 years old again, like I was there. That's literally the last season that we were in the top 3 on the 6th of January was 87-88, which is that photo was taken I think on the 1st of March 1988. So literally we're in that, come full circle to that season again. So I feel like I'm 9-10 years old and absolutely loving every moment of every day, thinking about Forest, and long may it continue.
Well, I know you treasure that picture, and rightly so, and we love seeing it every time you're on. So never take it down, because the impact that Brian Clough had on Nottingham, the people of Nottingham, on the country, I don't think it's ever going to be matched ever again. We've really gone over. I wanted to quickly finish off our post-match reactions with Chief from Barstool Sports with a rallying cry.
We always win away. Forest, second in the table. I don't care what the table says. We're better than Arsenal. We're in a title chase. Liverpool's next. Let's go. Big T first of the year. This team can't be stopped. Another clean sheet. 6 in a row. Nobody else can say that. This is the best team in the world. Nottingham Forest.
Best team in the world, Nottingham Forest. We're out of time. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. Some very brief closing thoughts before you go.
Look, just really happy with how we're playing. As I say, massive feel-good factor. Really looking forward to the Luton game and then Liverpool game. Can I just do one quick call out? I was actually having a beer with my neighbour, who's actually a QPR fan, and of course QPR just played Luton, and I was talking to him about it, and he said he got up as well at 6 a.m. this morning to watch the QPR game, and he was saying that Luton weren't much cop, so he reckons we should do well. But I just thought I'd mention that. I've got the inside line on Luton.
Fantastic.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Paul Morley. Thanks ever so much, mate.
Thank you. Just last stat. I know I said the last one was this is I promise the last one.
One more thing.
Luton third round weekend. We're sitting third in the Premier League. Last 8 seasons, the team that's been in third place in the Premier League going into third round weekend has won the cup 5 times in the last 8 years.
Thank you very much for that. Richard Spray over in Oklahoma. Final thoughts, buddy?
Yeah, you'd think I'd be used to it by now, but I just continue to be blown away week after week by this team and by the way that we continue to play at such a high level, and it's so unexpected compared to where we were. I mean, I was talking to Chris Aylmer, and they're getting ready to do a Pathways show, and usually it's a pathway to stay in the Premier League, and he just doesn't know what to do because he's trying to figure out, how do I put this together, because now it's pathway to something completely different, something I never anticipated. So it just continues to be a pinch me moment. I love it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Just want to say that if you're based in New Zealand, then I am going to be on the radio in New Zealand on, I think, Thursday morning at 8 a.m. So that's about 7 p.m. on Wednesday night. So I'm on Sport Nation. So I've been contacted from Sport Nation. They want to get involved on the Chris Wood chat, obviously. So it's going to be going out sometime on Thursday. So if you're in New Zealand, if you're down under and you can get a hold of any of that, then listen out for my dulcet tones. I might have hopefully fixed my throat by then. And also coming out very soon, the Mist Rolling In fanzine. I've got another article on Ola Aina that's going to be featured in that. So look out for that. Dwayne will be in his usual position selling that, I think, before the Liverpool game. I could be wrong, but keep your eyes out for the Mist Rolling In fanzine. Going to leave you with the great man, with what I think was one of his best ever quotes. It's one that's been around for years. But listen, Brian Clough, wherever you may be, if you're looking down on us at the moment, it feels like you're just sprinkling some of that magic still over the City ground. It feels like we are the team of miracles. You started it all 50 years ago when you came through the door. It feels like maybe Steve Cooper got a little bit of your sprinkled magic, and now Nuno is certainly reaping the benefits. It all goes back to you, Mr. Clough, and it always will do. We'll always love you and we'll always be grateful. This is Brian Clough. We'll see you soon.
React though when someone, from your playing staff comes in and says, "Boss, I think you're doing this wrongly."
Good. Well, I ask him which way he thinks it should be done. We get down to it, and then we talk about it for 20 minutes, and then we decide I was right.